Have you achieved success and a high income, but still lack personal fulfillment and work-life balance? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. Join us as Aaron, Eunicia, Joanne, and Mim share transformative insights and practical strategies just for you. Discover real stories and lessons that will elevate your personal satisfaction, professional accomplishment, and financial empowerment.
Welcome to the Successful But Struggling podcast. I'm Mim Abby, and I'm here today with Eunicia Perrette, who is the founder and the CEO of Excelstra, a wealth strategy consultancy. And if you've ever wondered what is happening with my money, then this podcast episode today is for you. So let's jump into it and welcome Eunicia. So glad to be talking with you about this incredibly important topic today, our money.
Our money, yes, ma'am. I am so happy to be here with our listeners today to talk about money and everything that they might be thinking about when it comes to it.
So true, so true. And I know that at Excelstra, the work that you're doing there and the work that that your team and you do there, you love to help people and you love to demystify so much that people are mystified by them and it really trips them up in their lives, their financial lives, and our financial lives impact our entire lives. So I'm really curious, Eunicia, and I'm sure our listeners are. Tell us a little bit about how you got started on this road that you're
You know,
on.
it's a good question, ma'am. It's an excellent question, actually, because oftentimes when I talk about my past, it frankly stumps individuals at times. And the reason it stumps them is because I've always been in the financial world. I graduated with a finance degree. I did strategy consulting, specifically focused on the office of the CFO and the finance operations. I worked in financial services, also at the intersection of financial services and the finance as a function. And people say, Wait, surely you would have come across those same strategies back in your old life." And the answer is a resounding, I wish. I wish that was the case. The reason I started and we are where we are today is because a few years ago, my husband and I looked at where we were financially, and what was very much of an eye opening situation for us was we were not getting the support that we needed from back then our financial team. And so when we sat down and we looked at it, what we realized was that we were being put in what I call now the corner of shame because we were young, we were making a lot of money, but we also like to, we happen to love to invest in real estate. And so our financial team, as you might expect, was not exactly super thrilled about the fact that the money that we were deploying towards our investments in our future was not necessarily going through some specific portfolio strategy that they were offering. And so because of that, we kind of lost the grace. There was no red carpet rolling out everywhere I went, specifically when it came to our finances. And what we realized was that we were definitely on the right path, but had we had the support that we actually needed, we could have been so much further advanced. And so that's kind of where it all started.
Oh, Eunicia, what an incredible story. And that phrase, the corner of shame, that is terrible. I'm guessing that it's a pretty high percentage of people that you work with who have been in the corner of shame. Am I guessing right?
You would be on the right path. And the reason for that, ma'am, is because oftentimes as individuals, we focus on what we know how to do best. And frankly, that's the way it should be. And when we speak with professionals, I mean, think about it, sometimes when you even go to the doctor, and I know we're dealing with, we have a lot of physicians in our combined network, but not all doctors are the same. And oftentimes, just because you're dealing with specific lines of expertise, sometimes somebody else's diagnosis might be looked down upon just because it doesn't come from the same source. It's very much the same in financial services. It's, if it's not the individual that you're working with that gave you the idea, then everything else has to be discounted. And the reality is that sometimes the answer is somewhere in between. And what ends up happening specifically with the corner of shame is, especially as successful individuals, y- you're bringing in a lot of money. There's a lot that you're doing. There's a lot that you're investing in, And at the same time, if it's not in alignment to what you're being told or the guidance that you're receiving from whomever it is that you're working with, all of a sudden it becomes a negative reaction on you or
Mm,
reflection on you. The
mm.
question then becomes, why is that? So, what we found is that the negative reflection is exactly what ends up putting the clients or the individuals in what we call that corner of shame because it makes them feel less than. It makes them feel less
Yeah.
than worthy. They don't know enough. They don't have enough. I mean, we're working with very successful individuals that are bringing in $500,000, maybe more between combined husband and wife. And when they come to us, they'll say, well, what are your minimums on investments? How much do you want us to have in investable assets? So they immediately know that the industry is kind of pre-programmed to ask for specific things. And when
Mm.
we noticed that that corner of shape was not a corner that just my husband and I were on or in, what we decided to do was we needed to break outside of that mold because individuals deserve and they need outlets and they need avenues to not feel that way.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, to not feel that way and that you were young and yet you did have a perspective. You had an opinion. You had certain ways that you wanted to invest. You said they sounds like they just didn't like your choices because your choices and specifically for you it was real estate didn't match up with their goals and their view. So I wanted to ask you why you do what you do, but I think you already answered that unless there's anything else you want to add to that because I can hear it, Eunice. I can hear the heart that you have at Excelstra, and I'm guessing that your whole team, I'm guessing that you have brought together people that have that same heart, that don't want people to be in that corner of shame, and want to help them to maximize all that hard work that they're doing.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, Mim, one of the things that I tell folks keeps me up at night. But then on the other side is it fuels my passion and our energy as a company. What keeps me up at night are all of the opportunities that people miss out on and lose out on. And I can give you an example of that. But before I do that, the thing that excites me is the fact that we don't think inside of the box. We're outside of the box thinkers. We're constantly looking at what is fresh, what is new, what are the things that maybe this year we need to be thinking about that last year might not have either been relevant or may not just simply not been available. And so, an example that I'll give you is last week I was dealing with a gentleman who works with a lot of dentists who are in the process of going through an exit out of their practices. And when the conversation came up about the windfall and the amount of money that will be coming in and what happens once the businesses are sold in terms of the income now shifts, there's it's going to be triggering some massive tax events for those individuals. My question was, okay, you guys have signed a letter of intent. What kind of strategies are you working on to minimize the
Mm,
tax exposure?
mm,
And I don't know if you might guess, but the answer was we're not really thinking about that yet. Well, the fact that the letter of intent was already signed, those things should have been discussed even before. And so that's the kind of stuff that we do. And the kind of things that drive us every day is let's figure out solutions. And so what did we do is we had an all hands on deck meeting with several key strategic partners that focus specifically on very unique tech strategies. And we said, okay, if we were to think about all the different things that would be available to those individuals at this point in time, what would that
mhm.
look like? And the questions that came out of that was something along the lines of, okay, let's figure out how each of the operators is thinking about their business, how each of the individuals are thinking about their investment desires. How are they thinking about long term, short term? And you can tell just based on those questions alone, it's not a one size fits all. But unfortunately, the industry is more of a one size fits all solution. And so, what energizes me, energizes us as a team is constantly figuring out how and what are those new solutions so that our clients don't ever feel like they're in the one size solution fits all because they should
Oh,
never be there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really interesting. So you brought up a question, and that they should be asking. I'd love to know other types of and maybe that's the main question, but maybe there's other types of questions that you would encourage people. You're clearly so experienced, Eunicia. It's just such a privilege to be talking with you and working with you with this podcast. And you bring such richness and such benefit to people that your perspective can be of great have a great impact in people's lives. So I just drawing from that perspective, what are some of the questions that you feel like people should be asking that they might not be asking right now, with when it comes to just either asking themselves or asking whoever they're working with in terms of their own financial strategy?
I love that question. The reason I love it is because it literally came up on another podcast. I was a podcast guest on an interview earlier today, and um, basically here's the thing. What we know is that a lot of individuals are struggling. They're paying too much in taxes. They know they're feeling the burn, right? We're talking with a lot of very successful business owners. If you're listening to this, we know that you're probably that type of an individual because of who we seem to be attracting as a team here at Successful But Struggling and on the podcast. And what we're finding is that it, oftentimes the question is, how do I minimize my taxes? So if you've ever asked yourself the question of, what do I need to do to minimize those taxes, that tax exposure? Chances are there are some answers that you will probably find, but you have to actually ask the question. The other one that comes up often is, Eunicia, who can I trust? And my response is, you cannot trust anyone. You have to trust in the process. If there's a process that has been proven after, for us in our example, working with hundreds and hundreds of clients, and that process continued to be refined based on those lessons learned, our strategic partners are refined based on what our clients need, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and it's really deep and very robust, then you can probably take a leap of faith. But if you've got that pang in your stomach where you know that you should be talking to someone, and you know that maybe your questions have gone unanswered from years prior, whether it be in your conversations with your CPA, in your conversations with your financial planner, my guidance would be, it's okay to realize, you have to realize that they're there, and you have to step into them to say, okay, I get it. They're there. I've been not acknowledging them. I've been putting them aside for the last X number of years. And that's okay. This is not a reflection on what we could have, should have, would have. It's a reflection on what we need to do. Because what we're finding is, for individuals similar to our listeners, most of the time, not doing something can cost them as much as several tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. And that adds up to a lot of money long term.
Oh my goodness, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year?
Yes.
Okay, that's too much. That's way, 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 way too much. Now, something that you just said that I also found stunning, besides that number, is who can I trust? And that your answer is no one, no one. That you don't trust a person, you trust a process. And I'm guessing that, well, I can feel my own impact, how that impacts me. So, but I'm guessing you're making the point of that because you've seen this mistake that people make. People trust a person, they trust a personality. And there are times that the personality person lets them down, lets them down. So where did that come from? Don't trust a person, trust a
I'll give you
process.
an example that comes to mind as you were mentioning all that. It was a couple of years ago. I got on a phone. It was a referral from one of our physician clients. It was a physician family, husband and wife, both in their own individual areas of expertise. And the question came, it was very similar. Eunicia, who can we trust? Because we've spoken with our parents' financial planning team. We're not resonating, we're not in alignment. Our taxes are a complete mess. Where do we go and what do we do? And what ended up happening was, because you notice that we're talking about the parents actually came back up further on in the conversation, and it sounded something along the lines of, we'd like to validate with our parents what we should be doing. So notice, It started with a problem. We're not resonating, but we're so uncertain that we're going to go back to the same pool of individuals that maybe not that we don't trust them, but maybe we have something about what we're being told, or there's some sort of a misalignment, and we boomerang right back, or they boomerang right back. And so what I can tell you is that when it comes to trusting, and the reason I tell people you have to trust the process is because when there is a solid process that you can understand will deliver value to you, because it's not just put together, it's not just let us tell you of how awesome we are, but rather here are the ways in which you get to benefit, then it's easier to get behind those action items and those steps that have meaning and are rooted in truth and in fact, versus just trusting me or anybody else because you've got a him or a her. We hear that a lot. But I already have a financial planner. I already have a financial
Mhm.
advisor. I already have a CPA. I already have a bookkeeper. Like, that's wonderful. Our job is not to displace them. Our job is to make sure everybody works together. So you see the difference between the I have a him or a her, or I have someone, and being open minded to saying we got to do things differently. And so they're right there in the middle lies the who can I trust? And the idea is you need to trust to make sure that whatever's happening, the team is working for you, not on their own individual islands, and you in the corner of shame.
Hmm. So that sounds like a significant part of your process is you get to keep your people, but there's a process that helps that again, I'll say maximizes, and maybe there's a synergistic element of this as well that can turn on when people work together in, well, maybe for starters or in a different way than they have in the past.
Very much so. As a matter of fact, just earlier today, I was talking to one of our strategic partners, a very successful bookkeeping company, and I was providing him some visibility into the conversation with the client, which directly impacted how the client works with the bookkeeping firm, how the CPA comes into play, how the fractional CFO comes into play. So you'll notice we're only talking about the accounting side still, but all of those people need to work together. And one of the sentiments was, Eunicia, we could only wish that more people did what Excelstra does, because not only are their jobs easier, but guess what? The client benefits tremendously from that. And that's exactly what we do. Is it's all about how do we add additional value to the client.
So you're saying that not only does it add value to the client, but it makes the job easier of the people who are serving them. Is that what I'm
100%.
hearing?
100%.
That's
Because otherwise,
so
I mean,
interesting.
just in that situation alone, you've got a third party provider that's working with the client's executive team. And sometimes the executive team has to take on additional responsibilities. Do we think that they're going to necessarily be wanting to hold hands and sing kumbaya? Oh, yes, we've got a great partnership. Probably not. There's going to be some squeakiness possibly going on. There's some things that need to be addressed. And so what we found is that when we address those that squeakiness and those things that don't work well, it's not about displacing a team. It's about figuring out what are the things that are missing, and sometimes it requires an open and honest conversation. And so that's where that collaboration is absolutely imperative, frankly.
Nice. It sounds absolutely imperative. Why isn't anyone else doing this, Eunicia?
I don't know, but I can tell you that we do it at Excelstra. So
Yeah,
so we're here for
yeah,
for folks that actually want to think outside of the box and are looking for that support.
yeah, yeah. Got it. So this is why you're a founder. Because you're a big thinker and you're a strategic thinker and you've got that financial background that allows you to really understand these different components. So wow, so exciting. This and I love that you said this is what keeps me up at night is the opportunities that people lose out on. So I can hear what the heart is, and just as you think back, um, have there been times where people said, "Yeah, I think I'm not ready to move forward right now." Tell me about any to give us a horror story, Eunice, of someone who did not maybe go a certain direction that you thought that they should go.
Well, that's a it's a beautiful question, but sad for some. Most of I have to tell you, our business, and we grew truly through referrals and just individuals referring us to their friends, business partners, acquaintances, and such. And one of those referrals to us is someone that we have some I will call them acquaintances because I can't call them friends, and contact together. And when they came to us, they had just told us that they went into a real estate deal. And so, of course, I already told you we love real estate. So let's roll up our sleeves and understand what the deal is. How is it going to work with the client's broader financial picture and outlook? And when we started asking questions, of course, we triangulated the discussion with their broader financial team. And because we started asking the questions and more questions about just trying to understand how is the deal structured, what kind of client expect, what does the time frame look like? The time frame for to and just close on the deal had slipped to close on the build of the properties had slipped by more than 6 months. And so we were just trying to figure out which way is up. What ended up happening was the client was advised by their old CPA team to just go ahead and fire sale at the end of last year because they said, well, it's land, you'll get a beautiful tax benefit. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, we're talking about real estate. There's only so much land. Even if there was to be a correction, that's not, I mean, to lose 50% on an investment just because, we're going to get a tax benefit, that is not a sound decision. Um, the the problem was the deal went rogue because the clients did not understand what was happening, and the team on the real estate side, they basically came in, and when they realized we knew what we were doing as part of a broader team that was supporting the client, they told the client, we do not want anybody involved. If they're not involved in this real estate deal, we do not want them on calls via emails. We don't want them CC'd. We don't want any of that. And so they started slowly pulling away from the client. And the client got into a situation where they truly were on an island of their own. And so we had to bring in all sorts of support, external support, to provide the assistance because these particular properties were out of state in a market that the client did not know anything about, in an industry that they were not familiar with. And so, long story short, in that particular case, it was a very sad story. And we told the client, I personally had a conversation with the client. I said, I cannot advise you to do what the CPA is telling you to do, but you have to do what you feel is right. And after the properties were sold, they came back and they said, we do not ever want to work with anybody unless they're willing to be at that table. Because what they realized was that hindsight 2020, if everybody would have been on the same level and at the same table and speaking on behalf of the client, not against the client and only for their own benefit, yes, it would have been a little bit more work on their end, but the client would have been in so much better of a position. And so
Mm,
that's kind of unfortunately a bad story that we helped and we put some support around, but there's only so much that can be done when the client's team says, oh no, 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 we don't want anybody else in our beeswax.
mm, my goodness. So, what would be your advice? I want to ask how people can get in touch with you, Eunicia, because I'm sure there's some people this has really kicked up some concern and some questions, and would probably love to have a conversation with you. And so I do want to get to that, but I want to know for anyone who's just thinking, gosh, if I weren't going to pick up the phone and call Eunicia, just like what should I be thinking about, or what should I ask my financial person at this point?
Here's what I would tell you. You probably already have several questions in mind. Pick up the phone, schedule that meeting, and let's have a conversation. Because what ends up happening in that conversation, you will come up with questions that are not just what should I. They're not questions of what you should be asking, but they're questions that are grounded in your specific situation. So if you're
Uh,
wanting to get in touch with us, if you're wanting to get in touch with me, the easiest way is to go to podcast.excelstra.com. That's
yeah.
podcast.excelstra.com. And you can just initiate an outreach there. You can also get some additional resources. And then, of course, you can always find me here on Successful but Struggling.
Oh, that's fantastic, Eunicia. So you're saying if someone has someone that they trust and they want to keep them involved, there are some questions that you should probably be asking them. A great place to start is to talk with Eunicia, and she can help you to think through what are some of those questions. And as you said, it's not just a generic, here's a list of questions, but a tailored set of questions that are based on your situation. So I bet there's going to be a lot of people who are very, very surprised and grateful that there's someone like you and a team like Excelstra. Eunicia, thank you so much for all of this great information and for telling us about the good, bad, and the ugly. Because again, how we started is that your finances are an incredibly huge part of your life. We talk about our life, our finances. Well, finances, you cannot separate that out. And so thinking about what are we doing in terms of our wealth and our strategy for our wealth, and really good idea to get some support from someone who really knows. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us for the Successful but Struggling podcast on our episode today, where we got to hear from Eunicia. Eunicia, thank you so much. Great information. And everyone, glad you were here. Really looking forward to seeing you in our next episode. We'll see you soon.
Don't miss it, everybody. It was so much fun being here with you today.
Don't miss out on more strategies that will elevate you to new heights. Visit successfulbutstruggling.com now, where you'll discover exclusive resources and the opportunity to connect with each of us individually. There you can dive deeper into how you, too, can take your personal and professional game to the next level. And if you're serious about optimizing your results, take 2 quick steps now. Number 1, connect with us on the website. And number 2, tune in to the next episode.